On a cold, silent night, a young man named Ian was driving alone along an abandoned highway far outside the city. The road stretched endlessly into darkness, surrounded by empty fields and broken electric poles. His phone had no signal, and the only sound inside the car was the low hum of the engine and the wind brushing against the windows. As he rounded a sharp turn, his headlights revealed something unusual ahead. An old red car parked on the side of the road. Its paint looked faded, almost black under the darkness, and its headlights flickered weakly as if struggling to stay alive. Ian slowed down, feeling an unexplained heaviness in the air. The area felt colder than before. He noticed the driver's door of the red car, slightly open, moving slowly with the wind. No other vehicles were nearby. For a moment, he considered driving past it, but curiosity and concern forced him to stop. The instant his car engine idled near the vehicle, his radio crackled with loud static even though it had been turned off. Ian frowned and reached to switch it off completely, but the sound only grew louder. Then, without warning, the headlights of the red car turned on fully, shining directly toward him. A chill ran down his spine. He looked around, expecting someone to step out, yet the road remained empty. The silence became suffocating. Suddenly, he noticed faint dark stains trailing from beneath the red car toward the asphalt. Thick, wet marks that looked disturbingly like blood. Realizing something was terribly wrong, Ian quickly locked his doors. But just as he prepared to drive away, his rearview mirror showed a shadowy figure standing behind his car, even though he was completely alone seconds earlier. Ian's heart pounded as he stared into the rearview mirror. The shadow behind his car vanished the moment he turned around to look directly through the back window. Confused and frightened, he convinced himself it was only his imagination. Taking a deep breath, he started the engine and prepared to leave the strange red car behind. Just as he pressed the accelerator, a loud knock struck the passenger side window. Ian gasped. Outside stood a man, pale and trembling, his clothes torn and stained with what looked like fresh blood. One side of his face was bruised, and his breathing seemed painfully slow. The man weakly raised his hand, signaling for help. Against his better judgment, Ian unlocked the door. The injured stranger slid into the passenger seat without saying a word. A strong metallic smell filled the car. Ian tried to ask what happened, but the man only stared forward, silent, his eyes unfocused, as if he were not fully present. They drove for several minutes in complete silence. The temperature inside the car suddenly dropped, and fog formed on the windows from the inside. Ian nervously glanced at the passenger, but the seat was empty. The door was still locked. His breath caught in his throat. Slowly, he looked down and saw dark red blood spreading across the seat where the man had been sitting moments ago. The stain grew wider, as if freshly poured. Panicking, Ian checked the back seat. Nothing. No sound. No movement. Then the radio turned on by itself. Through heavy static, a distorted voice whispered, "You shouldn't have stopped." At the same time, the seat belt beside him clicked into place on its own, tightening as though someone invisible had just sat down again. Ian froze as the seat belt beside him tightened by itself. The empty passenger seat dipped slightly, as if carrying an unseen weight. His breathing became uneven, and panic rushed through his body. Without thinking, he slammed his foot on the accelerator and sped down the dark highway. The road blurred ahead while the radio continued producing distorted static. Every few seconds, faint whispers slipped through the noise, impossible to understand yet filled with anger. Ian tried turning the radio off, but the button refused to respond. Trying to calm himself, he glanced into the rearview mirror, and his blood ran cold. Behind him, far down the road, the same red car appeared. Its headlights burned unnaturally bright, cutting through the darkness like glowing eyes. Ian blinked, hoping it would disappear, but instead the car grew closer, impossibly fast. He pushed the speed higher. The engine roared as the speedometer climbed, yet the red car maintained the same distance, neither falling behind nor overtaking him. It moved silently, almost floating over the road. The highway suddenly felt endless. Every turn looked identical, every sign missing or broken. Ian realized he had been driving straight for several minutes, but somehow kept passing the same cracked road sign again and again. His phone screen lit up on the dashboard by itself. A notification appeared. Accident zone ahead. There was no signal, no internet, yet the warning remained. The red car's headlights flashed aggressively. For a split second, Ian saw something inside it through the mirror. Multiple shadowy figures sitting motionless, all facing him. The temperature dropped further, fog filling his car. Then, from the empty passenger seat, a slow voice whispered near his ear, "You can't escape the road." Ian's hands trembled on the steering wheel as the whisper faded into silence. The fog inside the car thickened, making it difficult to see the road ahead. His heartbeat echoed loudly in his ears while the red car's headlights continued glowing in the rearview mirror like an unblinking stare. Suddenly, the radio static cleared. A calm but distorted announcer's voice filled the car. "This is a late-night emergency broadcast reporting a tragic accident on Highway 17. Ian's breath slowed as he listened. The broadcast sounded old, as if recorded years ago. The announcer described a deadly crash involving a red sedan that had been linked to multiple disappearances. According to the report, travelers claimed the driver offered rides before they were never seen again. The voice continued, describing the final night, a violent collision that killed the suspected murderer instantly. Witnesses reported strange events afterward. Phantom headlights, unexplained crashes, and drivers claiming they were chased by a car that should no longer exist. Ian felt dread creeping into his chest. The announcer then spoke a date. It was tonight's date. The radio crackled violently, repeating the same sentence again and again. "The accident will repeat. The accident will repeat." Outside, the road signs suddenly changed. Rusted boards appeared, warning of a sharp turn ahead. Yet Ian didn't remember this part of the highway. The air grew unbearably cold, and frost slowly spread across the windshield from inside. In the rearview mirror, the red car accelerated closer than ever before. Its headlights flashed once. For a brief moment, Ian saw the driver clearly, a pale figure with a shattered face, staring directly at him with a horrifying smile. Then his own car engine began to fail. The engine coughed violently as Ian pressed the accelerator, but the car refused to gain speed. A grinding noise echoed from beneath the hood, and the dashboard lights flickered wildly. Panic spread through him as the vehicle slowly began to lose power. Behind him, the red car moved closer, its headlights burning brighter with every second. The radio announcer's voice returned, calmer now, almost emotionless. Authorities discovered that the driver of the red sedan was responsible for several disappearances along Highway 17. Victims were last seen accepting help from a wounded stranger. Ian's stomach tightened as he remembered the injured man he had allowed into his car. The broadcast continued, revealing chilling details. The killer reportedly pretended to be injured to gain sympathy from travelers. Once inside their vehicles, strange accidents followed. Cars losing control, drivers vanishing without explanation. Police never understood how the crimes were committed. Then came the final statement. The victims were never found, only abandoned cars covered in blood. A loud bang shook Ian's vehicle. He screamed as something slammed against the trunk from outside. The rear-view mirror trembled, showing dark handprints spreading across the back glass, as if someone was crawling over the car. The temperature dropped further, and his breath became visible in the freezing air. Suddenly, memories that were not his own flashed in his mind. Screams, crashing metal, spinning headlights, and the feeling of impact. It was as if he were reliving someone else's final moments. The radio whispered again, this time directly addressing him. "You stopped, so now you belong to the road." At that instant, the fuel gauge dropped to empty, the engine died completely, and Ian's car rolled to a halt in the middle of the dark highway, while the red car slowly stopped right behind him. Ian gripped the steering wheel as his car came to a complete stop in the middle of the deserted highway. The engine was dead. The headlights flickered weakly before stabilizing, illuminating only a short stretch of empty road ahead. Behind him, the red car idled silently, its lights glowing far too bright for a vehicle that made no sound. He quickly tried unlocking the doors. Click! Nothing happened. He pressed the button again and again, but the locks refused to move. The windows would not roll down either. Panic tightened his chest as he realized he was trapped inside. A cold breath suddenly fogged the inside of the windshield. Not from him, but from somewhere beside him. Ian slowly turned toward the passenger seat. The seat belt was stretched tight again, holding an invisible shape in place. The car alarm suddenly activated on its own, blaring loudly into the empty night. Yet outside, everything remained unnaturally still. No animals, no wind, only silence beyond the glass. Then the headlights behind him switched off. Darkness swallowed the road. For several seconds, Ian saw nothing in the mirror. His heart pounded harder with every passing moment. Then, without warning, the red car's lights turned back on. Now impossibly close, almost touching his bumper. A loud metallic scrape echoed across his car roof, as if something heavy was crawling slowly from the back toward the front. The metal dented slightly with each movement. Ian squeezed his eyes shut, whispering to himself that it wasn't real. The scraping stopped directly above him. Then a single drop of dark liquid fell onto the windshield from above, followed by another. It looked like blood. The radio turned on again, whispering softly, "Open the door, let us in." Ian stared at the drops, sliding slowly down the windshield. His hands shook uncontrollably as more dark liquid spread across the glass, thick and unmistakably like blood. The whisper from the radio repeated over and over, growing louder with each second. "Open the door, let us in." He covered his ears, but the voice seemed to come from everywhere. The speakers, the seats, even the air around him. The temperature inside the car dropped so low that frost began forming along the edges of the windows. Suddenly, faint handprints appeared on the windshield from the outside. One, then another, then dozens. Invisible hands pressed against the glass, leaving smeared bloody marks as if unseen figures surrounded the vehicle. The car shook slightly, reacting to movements Ian could not see. He tried starting the engine again. The key turned, but instead of the engine, a distorted scream blasted through the speakers. The dashboard lights flickered rapidly, showing symbols and warning signs that made no sense. Ian looked toward the passenger window and froze. A face slowly pressed against the glass from the outside, pale, cracked, and lifeless. Its eyes were completely black. Within seconds, more faces appeared beside it, overlapping unnaturally, all staring directly at him. The windows began to crack. Thin fractures spread across the glass like spider webs while cold air seeped inside. Ian screamed and kicked the door, desperate to escape, but the locks remained sealed. Then all movement suddenly stopped. The whispers faded. The bloody handprints disappeared at once, leaving the glass perfectly clean. For a brief moment, silence returned. Relieved, Ian exhaled until he noticed something terrifying. The back seat dipped slowly downward, as if someone had just sat behind him. Ian's breath caught in his throat as the back seat slowly sank under an invisible weight. The car's suspension creaked softly, confirming that something, or someone, was now inside with him. He was too afraid to turn around. The air grew heavier, filled with the same metallic smell he had noticed earlier when the injured hitchhiker first entered his car. A faint wet sound came from behind him, like dripping liquid hitting leather seats. Gathering what little courage he had left, Ian slowly looked into the rear-view mirror. His heart nearly stopped. The injured man sat in the back seat again, but this time he looked far worse. His face was pale gray, skin torn as if damaged in a violent crash. Blood covered his clothes, and pieces of broken glass were embedded in his forehead. His eyes were completely black, reflecting no light. The man's head tilted unnaturally to one side. Ian turned around instantly, but the seat behind him appeared empty. Breathing heavily, he faced forward again, and the figure was now sitting directly behind his shoulder in the mirror, closer than before. A cold hand slowly reached forward from the darkness and rested on Ian's seat. The leather sank under its pressure, even though Ian could barely see the arm itself. Then the voice came, clearer than ever. "You gave me a ride. Now you've finished the journey." The dashboard lights suddenly displayed a warning message. "Return TO accident point." Outside the windshield, the road changed. The fog cleared just enough to reveal twisted guardrails ahead and scattered debris across the asphalt. The exact scene described in the radio broadcast. Ian realized with horror that he had unknowingly driven back to the place where the deadly crash had happened. The steering wheel began turning on its own toward the broken road ahead. Ian's hands froze on the steering wheel as the car moved on its own. Every turn felt wrong. The road twisted unnaturally, the scenery repeating itself, yet the destination felt familiar in a terrifying way. He realized, with a sick feeling in his stomach, that he was no longer in control. The rearview mirror reflected the red car, close behind, its headlights blazing unnaturally bright. He could see the shadowy figures inside, staring straight at him. The injured hitchhiker's face appeared again, contorted in silent screams, fading in and out as if shifting between the living and the dead. The radio crackled violently, whispering directly into Ian's mind. Anyone who stops relives the night. He finally understood the horrifying truth. The road wasn't just haunted, it was cursed. Every driver who stopped on this highway at night, every person who picked up a stranger, was trapped in a loop, forced to relive the fatal accident over and over. There was no escape. Ian's vision blurred as memories that were not his own flooded in. Twisting metal, shattering glass, screams echoing in darkness, and the feeling of his car spinning uncontrollably. He felt every impact, every terrifying moment, as if he were the original victim. The red car drew closer, and the shadows inside reached toward him. He tried to brake, tried to turn away, but his own hands didn't respond. The steering wheel jerked violently, guiding him toward the twisted wreckage that now lay ahead. Ian screamed as the realization struck him. The accident wasn't just a past event. It was waiting for him. The cursed highway demanded its next victim, and he had become the next soul to repeat the horrors of a night, over and over again, with no hope of escape. Ian's screams echoed inside the car, but the highway remained silent. The red car was right behind him now, its headlights glaring like twin eyes in the night. Shadowy figures inside pressed forward, their black, hollow eyes fixed on him with unrelenting hunger. The cursed road twisted sharply, guiding Ian directly toward the wreckage he had been unknowingly circling all night. Pieces of metal, shattered glass, and blood-stained asphalt stretched across the lane ahead. His foot slammed the brakes, but the pedals sank uselessly into the floor. The car refused to stop. A flash of memories, not his own, overtook him completely. He felt the violent collision, the crunch of steel against steel, the agony of invisible forces tearing through his body. He realized the horrifying truth. He wasn't merely witnessing the accident. He was reliving it. Every driver trapped on this highway was doomed to replay it, trapped in an endless loop of terror and bloodshed. The red car drew impossibly close, brushing against his bumper without a sound. A dark hand reached from the passenger window of the red car and tapped the roof of Ian's vehicle. The sound reverberated inside his skull. The invisible weight in his back seat pressed harder, forcing him further toward the wreckage. Then everything went black for a heartbeat. When Ian's eyes opened again, the car was found abandoned on the roadside the next morning. The engine was cold, the doors locked, and the interior eerily clean, except for faint streaks of blood across the passenger seat. No body was inside. Far down the highway, headlights flickered. The red car waited silently, poised to claim its next victim. Somewhere, the whispering continued. Stop, give a ride, relive the night. The cursed highway was patient. It never forgot. And now, a new soul would be forced to repeat the horrors of the bloody car forever.